Hae-yeon Kim stood at her school's front gate, checking the time on her phone. It was 3:45 p.m., and she needed to wait 15 more minutes for her best friend Jigmin to finish her math club meeting. The spring air was warm, and cherry blossoms fell softly around the middle school grounds. At 12 years old, Hae-yeon was already known as one of Pine Creek Middle School's brightest students. Her dark curly hair was tied back neatly, and her uniform was always perfect. She got this habit from her mother, who said that people would always judge them more harshly than others. As she waited, Officer Jae-ho Park's police car rolled up to the curb. Hae-yeon's heart beat faster. She had seen how Officer Park treated the other Black and Asian kids at school. He would often stop them, check their bags, or ask them many questions for no reason. "Hey you," Officer Park called out, stepping out of his car. "What are you doing here? School ended an hour ago." Hae-yeon stood up straight, just like her mother taught her. "I'm waiting for my friend, sir. She's in math club." Officer Park walked closer, his face showing he didn't believe her. "Really? Or are you planning to cause trouble? Empty your backpack." "Sir, I'm just waiting," Hae-yeon started to say. "Empty it. Now." Officer Park's voice got harder. With shaking hands, Hae-yeon opened her backpack. Her books, notebooks, and pencil case fell onto the sidewalk. Other students walking by started to watch. Officer Park kicked through her things with his boot. "Pick them up," he ordered. Hae-yeon bent down to collect her belongings, fighting back tears. She would not cry. She would not give him that satisfaction. Then Officer Park did something that would change everything. He grabbed Hae-yeon's arm and pulled her toward a nearby garbage can. "You want to hang around after school? Then you must be looking for food. Go ahead, eat from the trash. That's what you're here for, right?" Hae-yeon's face burned with shame as other students recorded the scene with their phones. Officer Park pushed her face closer to the garbage. "I said eat it." She could smell old food and dirty paper. Her stomach turned, but she kept her mouth shut. In her mind, she heard her mother's voice. "We must be stronger than they expect. We must be braver than they want. We must be better than they believe." "Officer Park." A sharp voice cut through the air. It was Mrs. Lee, Hae-yeon's science teacher, running down the school steps. "What do you think you're doing?" Officer Park let go of Hae-yeon quickly, but he tried to look like he was in control. "Just teaching this troublemaker a lesson about loitering." "This troublemaker is one of our best students," Mrs. Lee said, putting her arm around Hae-yeon's shoulders. "And she has permission to wait for her friend." Officer Park's face turned red, but he stepped back. "Fine, but don't let me catch you hanging around here again," he warned Hae-yeon before walking back to his car. As the police car drove away, Hae-yeon finally let herself shake. Mrs. Lee helped her pick up her scattered books, and Ji-min came running out of the school building, having heard what happened from other students. "Are you okay?" Ji-min asked, hugging her friend. "We should tell your mom." Hae-yeon nodded slowly. Yes, they should tell her mom. Because her mom wasn't just any parent. She was Mayor Sun-hee Kim, and she had spent years fighting against people like Officer Park. That evening, as Hae-yeon walked home with Ji-min, videos of the incident were already spreading online. She didn't know it yet, but what Officer Park had done would start something much bigger than a simple case of police harassment. Because Mayor Kim wasn't just going to be angry as a mother, she was going to use every power she had as a mayor to make sure justice was served. And Officer Jae-ho Park had no idea what was coming. Mayor Sun-hee Kim sat in her office, reading reports about the city's new recycling program. The setting sun made the city hall's windows glow orange. It had been a long day of meetings, but she always tried to finish her work before going home to Hae-yeon. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from her assistant. "Mayor Kim, you need to see this now." Below was a video link. Sun-hee clicked play. Her hands began to shake as she watched Officer Park force her daughter toward a garbage can. The phone almost fell from her grip. She had faced racism all her life, as the first Black Korean mayor, as a woman in politics, as a single mother. But seeing her child go through this made her blood boil. The mayor's office door burst open. Mom. Hae-yeon ran in, still in her school uniform. Her usual neat appearance was messy, and her eyes were red from crying. Sun-hee rushed to her daughter, wrapping her in a tight hug. Baby, I just saw the video. Are you okay? Hae-yeon broke down in her mother's arms. I tried to be strong, Mom. I remembered what you always tell me. But he made me feel so small. Sun-hee held her daughter's face in her hands. Listen to me, Hae-yeon. You are not small. You are not what they think you are. You are my daughter, and you are stronger than they know. But why did he do that to me? Hae-yeon asked through her tears. I was just waiting for Jimin. Sun-hee sat down, pulling Hae-yeon onto her lap like she used to when Hae-yeon was smaller. Some people have hate in their hearts, baby. They think they can hurt us because we look different. But remember, we're not just victims. We're fighters. As if to prove her point, Sun-hee's phone started ringing nonstop. News of the incident was spreading fast. Parents were calling about their own stories of Officer Park. Teachers were sending messages about other incidents they had seen. The video was going viral. What are you going to do, Mom? Hae-yeon asked, wiping her eyes. Sun-hee stood up, her face showing the determination that had made her mayor. First, we're going home. We're going to order your favorite food, and you're going to rest. Then tomorrow, I'm going to start fixing this. She pressed the intercom button. Get me Police Commissioner Lee on the phone, and clear my schedule for tomorrow morning. As they drove home, Sun-hee kept glancing at her daughter. Hae-yeon was quiet, looking out the window at the city lights. This was their city. Sun-hee had worked hard to make it better, but clearly there was more work to do. At home, they sat on the couch eating pizza, Hae-yeon's comfort food. Sun-hee's phone kept buzzing, but she ignored it. Right now, her daughter needed her more than the city did. Mom, Hae-yeon said softly, remember when you ran for mayor and people said mean things about us? Yes, baby. You told me that sometimes people's hate makes them blind, but we have to keep our eyes open. That we have to fight back by making things better. Sun-hee smiled proudly. That's right. Then I want to help you fight this time, Hae-yeon said, sitting up straighter. Not just for me, but for all the other kids Officer Park was mean to. Sun-hee hugged her daughter close. Tomorrow, she would put on her mayor's face and start the fight of her career. She would use every power her office gave her to make sure Officer Park and others like him couldn't hurt any more children. But tonight, she was just a mother, holding her brave daughter and planning how to make their city a place where no child would have to be so brave just to exist. Police Commissioner Tae-won Lee sat in his office early the next morning, watching the video of Officer Park and Hae-yeon for the 10th time. His coffee had gone cold, forgotten on his desk. As a police officer for 30 years, he had seen many bad things, but this video made him feel sick. A knock on his door interrupted his thoughts. Come in, he called. Mayor Sun-hee Kim walked in, dressed in a sharp blue suit. Her face was calm, but her eyes were fierce. Commissioner Lee, we need to talk about Officer Park. Mayor Kim, please sit down, Lee said. I've been looking into Officer Park's record since 5 a.m. The mayor sat down, placing her briefcase on his desk. What did you find? Commissioner Lee opened a thick folder. It's worse than we thought. In the past 3 years, there have been 12 complaints against Officer Park, all from minority students or their parents, all mysteriously dropped or buried. Buried by whom? The mayor asked, though she already knew the answer. Captain Du-yeon, Lee said. He's Park's direct supervisor. Every complaint went through his office. Everyone disappeared. Mayor Kim leaned forward. Show me everything. For the next 2 hours, they went through the files. They found patterns. Officer Park always picked on students after school hours when fewer teachers were around. He always claimed he was investigating suspicious behavior, and Captain Du-Yun always found ways to make the complaints vanish. "There's more," Commissioner Lee said, pulling out another file. "I had my most trusted officers do some quiet interviews this morning. We found 20 more students who never filed complaints. They were too scared." The mayor's hands tightened into fists. 20 more children. 20 more families who didn't trust us to help them. Commissioner Lee nodded. "But here's something interesting. Officer Park always works the same shift, patrols the same schools. And look who assigns the schedules." "Captain Du-Yun again," Mayor Kim said. "They're working together." A young officer knocked and entered quickly. "Commissioner, we found something in the police station's old security footage." They watched the new video on Lee's computer. It showed Officer Park and Captain Du-Yun in the station's parking lot 3 months ago. Du-Yun was handing Park an envelope. Money. "This goes deeper than harassment," Commissioner Lee said. "They're involved in something bigger." Mayor Kim stood up. "I want a full investigation, not just into Park and Du-Yun. I want every complaint checked, every schedule reviewed, every money transfer tracked." "That could shake up the whole department," Lee warned. "Good," the mayor said firmly. "Sometimes things need to be shaken to remove the rot." Commissioner Lee made some calls. Soon, his most trusted detectives were gathering evidence. They worked quietly, but thoroughly. By evening, they had files, videos, and witness statements showing years of abuse and corruption. The mayor stayed in Lee's office, helping to connect the dots. She only took one break, to call Hae-Yun at home. "How are you feeling, baby?" she asked. "Better, Mom," Hae-Yun answered. "The other kids at school are being really nice. They're sharing their own stories about Officer Park." "Keep collecting those stories," Mayor Kim said. "They're important." When she hung up, Commissioner Lee looked at her with respect. "You know this investigation could make a lot of powerful people angry." The mayor smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of someone ready for battle. "Let them be angry. I'm angrier. And I have something they don't have." "What's that?" "The truth, and a mother's determination to protect not just her child, but all children." Commissioner Lee nodded. He had chosen the right side in this fight. Now they just had to prove it. Reporter Mike Young Cho sat at her desk at the City Times newspaper, staring at her computer screen. Someone had just sent her an email with 2 videos. The first showed Officer Park forcing Hae-Yun toward the garbage can. The second showed Officer Park taking money from Captain Du-Yun. Mike Young's hands moved fast over her keyboard as she wrote. She had been looking for a story like this for years. As the city's top investigative reporter, she knew when she had found something big. Her phone rang. It was one of her old contacts in the police department. "Mike Young, you need to talk to the kids at Pine Creek Middle School. There are more stories about Officer Park. Many more." Within an hour, Mike Young was at the school. Students lined up to talk to her. They told her about Officer Park checking their bags for no reason, about him following them after school, about him making them feel scared and small. "He told me I didn't belong here," one student said. "He said I should go back where I came from, even though I was born in this city." Mike Young wrote everything down. Her article would tell all their stories. That evening, her story went online with the headline, "Police Officer Forces Mayor's Daughter to Eat Garbage, Tip of the Corruption Iceberg." The story spread like fire. Other news stations picked it up. Social media exploded with anger. People shared their own stories about Officer Park and other police officers who had been mean to minority children. Officer Park's friends tried to fight back. They went on TV and said Hae-Yun was lying. They said she was causing trouble. They said Mayor Kim was using this to get more power. But then more videos came out. Students had been recording Officer Park for months. Each video showed him being cruel to minority students. Nobody could deny the truth anymore. Mayor Kim held a press conference. She stood tall at the podium, looking straight into the cameras. "This is not about my daughter anymore. This is about every child who has been hurt by those who should protect them. This is about justice. Reporter Mike Young sat in the front row, recording everything. She watched Captain Du-Yun sitting in the back of the room, looking nervous. She saw Officer Park's union representative, Sung Min Kang, whispering to other officers. After the press conference, Mike Young got another secret email. This one had proof that Captain Du-Yun had been taking money from local criminals. He let them do illegal things in the school areas, and Officer Park helped cover it up. Mike Young wrote another article. This one was even bigger. Now people weren't just angry about Officer Park. They were angry about the whole system that protected bad police officers. More reporters came to the city. They interviewed Hae-Yun's friends. They talked to parents. They dug through police records. Every day, they found more proof of wrongdoing. Officer Park tried to hide from the cameras. Captain Du-Yun stopped coming to work, but they couldn't hide from the truth anymore. At home, Hae-Yun watched the news with her mother. "Mom," she said, "I was scared to tell you at first. I thought maybe people wouldn't believe me." Mayor Kim hugged her daughter. "That's what they counted on, baby. They counted on people being too scared to speak up. But you were brave, and now others are being brave too." Mike Young Cho wrote one more article that week, how a 12-year-old girl's courage exposed police corruption. This time, she included a photo of Hae-Yun standing proud with her mother, ready to fight for change. Commissioner Taiwan Lee walked through the police station early Monday morning. The usual noise and activity were gone. Instead, officers spoke in whispers, watching as internal affairs investigators went through their files and computers. The commissioner entered the main meeting room. Every senior officer sat there, faces tense. Captain Du-Yun's chair was empty. He hadn't come to work in 3 days, not since the evidence about his corruption became public. "Things are going to change," Commissioner Lee announced. "Starting today, every officer will be reviewed. Every complaint will be checked. No exceptions." In his office, a team of investigators worked through old cases. They found more than just Officer Park's wrongdoing. They discovered other officers who had been cruel to minority citizens. They found missing money. They found covered-up complaints. Sung Min Kang, the police union representative, stormed into the commissioner's office. "You can't do this. You're destroying the department." Commissioner Lee stayed calm. "No, Mr. Kang. The department was destroyed by officers who forgot their duty to protect everyone, not just some people." Officer Park sat in a small room, facing internal affairs investigators. His uniform was wrinkled, and he looked tired. The video of him forcing Hae-Yun toward the garbage played on a screen behind him. "Why did you do it?" the investigator asked. Officer Park's voice was angry. She was loitering. "I was doing my job. Your job is to protect children, not terrorize them," the investigator said. "We have statements from 28 students, all saying you targeted them because of their race." Meanwhile, Mayor Kim met with the city council. She showed them the evidence of corruption. She told them about the children who had been hurt. She demanded changes. "This will cost a lot of money," one council member warned. "And how much does it cost to let corrupt officers hurt our children?" Mayor Kim asked. The room went quiet. Back at the police station, more officers were suspended. Some had helped Captain Du-Yun hide complaints. Some had taken money like Officer Park. Some had just stayed quiet when they saw wrong things happening. Good officers came forward too. They told stories about trying to report problems but being ignored. They shared evidence they had kept secret, afraid to speak up before. Commissioner Lee called Mayor Kim with updates throughout the day. "We're finding more than we expected," he said. "This goes back years." "Keep going," the mayor said. "Clean it all out." At Pine Creek Middle School, Hae-Yun noticed changes. The police car that used to park outside was gone. Instead, a new community officer walked around, talking kindly to students, learning their names. Officer Park and his friends tried one last time to fight back. They went on TV again, saying they were being treated unfairly. But this time, nobody believed them. The evidence was too clear. That evening, Commissioner Lee made a big announcement. 17 officers were suspended. Captain Du-Yun was under criminal investigation, and Officer Park would never wear a police badge again. This is just the beginning, Commissioner Lee said to the cameras. We will rebuild this department. We will earn back the trust we lost, and we will never again let any officer think they can hurt our children and get away with it. The old guard of the police department was falling. Change was coming, pushed by a brave girl who refused to be a victim, and a mother who refused to let injustice stand. Community organizer Yuna Park stood on the steps of City Hall, looking at the growing crowd. Hundreds of people had gathered, holding signs and wearing shirts that said, "Justice for our children." Parents, students, teachers, and concerned citizens filled the square. Behind her, Hae-Yun Kim sat quietly, watching the crowd. She had never seen so many people come together like this. 2 weeks had passed since Officer Park had tried to humiliate her. Now, that terrible moment was becoming something powerful. Yuna walked to the microphone. We are here today because one brave girl showed us the truth. But we stay here because there are many more truths to tell, many more changes to make. The crowd clapped and cheered. In the front row, Mayor Kim watched her daughter. She saw Hae-Yun sit up straighter, seeing how many people cared. One by one, students came forward to share their stories. A boy talked about Officer Park following him home. A girl described how Captain Du-Yun had ignored her family's complaints. Parents spoke about their fear for their children. Then Yuna turned to Hae-Yun. Would you like to speak? Hae-Yun looked at her mother, who nodded encouragingly. Slowly, Hae-Yun walked to the microphone. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was clear. I was scared that day, she began. But I'm not scared anymore. Because now I know I'm not alone. None of us are alone. The crowd went quiet, listening to every word. Officer Park thought he could make me feel small, Hae-Yun continued. He thought nobody would care, but he was wrong. You all care. And together, we can make sure this never happens to another student. People cheered. Some cried. Parents hugged their children. Hae-Yun's words had touched something deep in everyone's hearts. After the rally, more people came forward with stories. Not just about Officer Park and Captain Du-Yun, but about problems in other parts of the city too. Yuna organized more meetings. She helped people file complaints. She made sure every voice was heard. At school, things were changing. Students who had been afraid to speak now shared their experiences. Teachers started a program to help students report problems. The new community police officer, Officer Song, came to classes to talk about rights and respect. Hae-Yun found herself becoming a leader. Other students came to her for advice. They trusted her because she had been brave first. She started a student group called Speak Up, Stand Strong to help kids support each other. One evening, after another community meeting, Yuna sat with Hae-Yun and Mayor Kim. You know, Yuna said, what Officer Park did was terrible. But look what you've turned it into. You've started a movement. Hae-Yun looked around at the people still talking and planning in small groups. I didn't do it alone, she said. Everyone here helped. That's right, Mayor Kim said proudly. Real change happens when people stand together. When one person's courage gives others courage too. As they left the meeting, Hae-Yun saw more people arriving with signs and shirts. The movement was growing. What had started with one terrible moment was becoming something beautiful, a community finding its voice, its strength, and its power to make change. Officer Park had tried to make her eat garbage. Instead, he had shown everyone the garbage in the system. And now, together, they were cleaning it up. Mayor Sun-hee Kim stood before the city council chamber, her voice firm and clear. The room was packed with citizens, reporters, and police officers. On her desk lay a thick document titled Police Reform Act. Today, we change our city, she began, not just with words but with laws. Laws that will protect all our children. Laws that will make sure what happened to Hyun never happens again. Commissioner Lee sat in the front row, nodding. Behind him, many police officers watched silently. Some looked angry, but others seemed relieved. They wanted change too. The new laws were strong. Every police officer would have to take special training about treating all people fairly. Body cameras would have to be on at all times. A new community board would watch over the police department and check complaints. Most importantly, any officer who was mean to people because of their race would lose their job right away. No more second chances. No more covering up bad behavior. As Mayor Kim explained each part of the new laws, she remembered the day Hyun had come to her office crying. That day, she had been just a mother, holding her hurt child. Now she was using her power as mayor to protect all children. The vote began. One by one, council members raised their hands. Some did it quickly, eager for change. Others did it slowly, worried about making the police angry. But in the end, the laws passed. In another part of the city, Officer Park and Captain Do-Yun sat in a courtroom. The judge looked at them sternly. "You broke the trust of our community," the judge said. "You hurt children who needed your protection. You took money to look the other way while criminals worked near schools." Officer Park would never be a police officer again. Captain Do-Yun was going to jail. Their friends who had helped them were also in trouble. Back at Pine Creek Middle School, Hyun watched on the classroom TV as her mother signed the new laws. Her classmates cheered. Their school was different now. The new community police officer, Officer Song, had started programs to help students trust the police again. That evening, Mayor Kim visited the police academy. New officers were learning about the reforms. They watched videos about treating everyone fairly. They learned from community leaders about different cultures. They practiced talking to people with respect. "Your job is not just to enforce laws," Mayor Kim told them. "Your job is to make everyone feel safe. Everyone. No exceptions." One of the new officers raised his hand. "Mayor Kim, can your daughter come speak to our class? We want to hear her story. We want to learn from what happened." The mayor smiled. "I'll ask her. But remember, Hyun's story is just one of many. Listen to all the stories. Learn from all of them." Later that night, Hyun and her mother sat in their kitchen, drinking hot chocolate. "Mom," Hyun said, "when Officer Park was mean to me, I felt so powerless. But look what we did with that power he thought we didn't have." Mayor Kim hugged her daughter. "That's the thing about power, baby. Sometimes it doesn't look like what people expect. Sometimes it looks like a girl being brave enough to tell her story. Sometimes it looks like a community standing together. Sometimes it looks like laws that make the world a little bit better." The reforms were just the beginning. There would be more work to do. But the city was changing, one law at a time, one story at a time, one heart at a time. 1 year had passed since the day Officer Park had tried to humiliate Hyun. The city had changed in ways no one could have imagined. Hyun, now 13, walked confidently through the halls of Pine Creek Middle School. She wore a special badge that said Youth Advisory Council Leader. Every month, she and other students met with police officers to talk about making the community better and safer. Today was a special day. Hyun stood at the front of the school auditorium, looking at the crowd. Students, teachers, police officers, and community members filled every seat. They were here to celebrate the opening of the Kim Foundation for Justice. Mayor Sun-hee Kim walked onto the stage, smiling proudly at her daughter. 1 year ago, she began, "Something bad happened at our school. But today, we're not here to remember the bad thing. We're here to celebrate what we built from it." The Kim Foundation would help students who faced bullying or unfair treatment. It would pay for programs to teach police officers about treating everyone fairly. It would give money to help good police officers learn to be even better. Commissioner Lee stood up to speak next. The police department looked very different now. Many of the old officers were gone, replaced by new ones who believed in treating everyone with respect. Every officer wore a body camera. Every complaint was checked carefully. "Our city is safer now," Commissioner Lee said. "Not because we have more police cars or bigger jails. It's safer because we learned to trust each other, to listen to each other, to protect each other." Hae-yun watched as Officer Song, the community police officer, showed pictures of the new programs. Students and police officers playing basketball together. Police officers learning about different cultures. Children feeling safe to talk to officers when they needed help. Then it was Hae-yun's turn to speak. She wasn't scared anymore. Not of speaking, not of police officers, not of standing up for what was right. "A year ago, someone tried to make me feel small by forcing me toward a garbage can," she said. He thought that was power. But real power isn't about making people feel small. Real power is about helping people grow. She pointed to the Youth Advisory Council members sitting in the front row. Real power is about speaking up, not just for yourself, but for others. It's about turning bad things into good changes. After the ceremony, people gathered in the schoolyard. There was food and music. Police officers talked and laughed with students and parents. It looked like a big family party. Mayor Kim found Hae-yun sitting with her friends from the youth council. "How are you feeling, baby?" she asked. "Happy, Mom," Hae-yun said. "But I'm also thinking about what's next. We've done a lot, but there's still more to do." Her mother smiled. That was her daughter. Always looking forward, always ready to help others. "You're right. There's always more work to do. But look how far we've come." They looked around at their changed city. Where there had been fear, now there was trust. Where there had been silence, now there were voices speaking up. Where there had been division, now there was community. Hae-yun touched the foundation's new logo on her badge. It showed a garbage can transformed into a flowering plant. Below it were the words, "From pain comes power. From power comes change." The story that had started with one cruel officer and one brave girl had grown into something much bigger. It had become a story about a whole community learning to stand up, speak out, and work together for justice. And it wasn't over. It was just a new beginning.